How to do y'all? Tables here. Happy weekend. Happy Saturday for those that it is, for those that it is Saturday. Um, Wanted to do a quick update on the Armageddon build and talk to you guys about my new project, the Cast on Crit League Starter project. And we killed Cyrus. It's very exciting news. I'll throw some video up right now.
When I'm ready, and not before.
Don't forget to heal with your flasks and stuff.
Feel the thrill of the void.
I need more mana.
It took us 5 tries. I finally got the fight down, but it was like on the gnat's ass that we killed it. I got some pretty good loot, and the Armageddon build is done, finished. Soon-ish, I will put a league start guide video out. Since we're more or less mid-league at this point, I'm not really gonna like rush it. But there will be a video. Be on the lookout for it. Check it out. Let me know what you guys think about it. And that is the really good news to report. We killed Cyrus, and the build is done, and I'm very happy. We're sitting on a freaking fat stack of currency right now. Almost 5,000 chaos, 14 exalts. We've done super well this league. Better than any other league I've ever done previously. That's for sure. Now, let's talk about Cast on Crit. There's a little bit to unpack here. You saw the footage earlier when in the intro of the video. It was just a level 58 zone. We're level 60, 61 right now, and that's essentially where I'm at in the story. Now, some things that I want to talk about. My original plan was to just take that 45 exalts that I have and turn it into a badass Cast on Crit Ice Nova build and do a build guide on it. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I kind of want to do another League Start build. But I want a League Start Cast on Crit, right? That's not really a thing, right? I've never seen anyone League Start Cast on Crit. And I think it's viable. I think it can be done. But there are some hurdles and some challenges that have to be overcome in order to really make it feel good, right? So I leveled the build straight from the get, and the rules are no excessive crafting, right? Because in a league start situation, you're not going to have a ton of crafting, right? No powerful uniques, no insane gems. Those are the rules that I pretty much leveled with. And here's some of our major hurdles. Major hurdle 1: no reliable crit until about like Act 5 to 6, right? And I say that because right now our our Cyclone crit is 50%. Our Ice Nova crit is also 50%. And that poses a bit of a challenge, right? Right now, as you've seen from the video, it works great, right? Especially with our 6 power charges, it does the job. Rares are a little tough. Uniques and bosses are a little difficult, but they will die. But mapping in general is very efficient, and it does a pretty exceptional job. But up to Act 5 and 6, crit is hard to come by. Very hard to come by. And so it makes it very difficult, right? And so the next hurdle is how do we level efficiently within acts 1 to 5, right? And I say that that's a hurdle because of the way that we are doing our passive tree. Our passive tree is extremely streamlined. You know, eventually we will come up through here, come all the way down here so we can get this power charge, right? And then eventually we will take some of these sovereignty nodes. We'll pick up purity of flesh and stuff like that. We will more or less be a hybrid build while we level, and then we will switch to pain attunement and chevrons and all, and, all that good stuff. One of the biggest hurdles is leveling from 1 to 5 and not dying constantly or doing like really shitty damage, and it's honestly a pain in the ass, right? Because if you notice, like, we're just picking up power charges. We're really like hard focusing crit, right? We're picking up multiplier. We have one spell damage node, one single one, and that is Arcanist's Domain, right? We do have a couple of Ellie damage nodes here, but aside from this one, and this one, that is 100% it. Everything else is pure crit, right? Because I want to I want to make this crit build viable as early as possible so you can start using it as early as possible. I don't want to run into a situation where you know, you level a certain way and then you switch, right? At like level 80 or whatever. No, I want to find a way. This is why this is called the Cast on Crit League Start project. I want to find a way to be able to League Start Cast on Crit by Act 5. And I want to do so reliably, right? Other challenges. There's other challenges. Oh, before we get to that, ideas. Well, let's do that afterwards. Challenges. Mana. Massive challenge. The way that Cast on Crit works. So Cyclone is only linked technically to Cast on Crit. It's not technically linked to Ice Nova, right? So that essentially makes our Cyclone mana multiplier really low, right? So it's only costing us 2 mana, right? Which is great, and we can essentially make that free at a certain point in the build. Now the issue is that every time Ice Nova is cast on critted, we have to pay its mana cost. Right now it costs 28 mana, right? And this proposes a really, this is probably one of our biggest hurdles, right? So you want to run Herald of Ice, you have to. There's no doubt about it. Precision, an absolute must-have. Hatred, you can dip on. I personally would use it. Just because you really do get a lot of extra damage from it. To be frank, so that leaves us with 199 mana. If we're critting, because like what's our attack rate on Cyclone? Almost 5 attacks per second. Imagine if we crit all 5 of those. That is a lot of mana, right? That's a ton of mana. And I don't really want to like sit there and have to spam a mana pot. So, because we're having to pay the cost of every single crit that Ice Nova hits, every time it's cast, every time we crit, that that equates to a ton of mana. So we got to figure out a way to keep our mana high, to keep our regen good enough to where we don't have to spam a mana pot. Because nobody wants to do that. That's just for the birds. So that is another hurdle. Mana. Every time we crit, we cast, and we have to pay the mana cost. Huge. Another hurdle. Gearing. Gearing is a little rough. Just for the simple fact that we are eventually going to want to go full ES because we're going to be low life. But as we level, we're going to want armor and evasion. This poses an issue for us because we have a lot of blue gems, right? And in a league start situation, you're not necessarily going to have a ton of chromatics, right? So gearing is going to be tough. Oh my gosh, I cannot type today. Majority blue gems. And so this is another. It's a overcomable hurdle, I think, overall. But it is tough because on our POB, right, we're running 2 blue gems there, a blue gem there, 3 green, more green. They're like, this is a very intelligence and dex heavy build, right? Save for our boots, obviously, and so gearing is something that I'm trying to work out, and once I figure out the most efficient way to level from X1 to 5, I can get a much better idea of what we need while we level, right? And then we can switch over to a pure ES build once we get to a certain point. Now, ideas on how to solve. How do we solve these problems? Simply focus crit. That's literally all we can do. Focus crit, right? We need to roll wands, which, by the way, once we make the switch around Act 5, we will be using daggers, right? We're going to be dual wielding daggers. From Act 5 and on, we will focus crit. We will alt spam for crit mods, right? And or find buy specific uniques that give us crits. That's how we solve Act 5 plus. And just doing that, and I'm not running any uniques right now on the build, so just with that, we have more than enough crit to get the build online, and it feels decent. It feels pretty solid. It could feel better. How do we level efficiently within Acts 1 to 5? I've tried out a multitude of spells. Wintertide is a no. It's just no. I can't. There's not enough spell power in the build. Wintertide doesn't crit. It just doesn't work at all. Freezing Pulse. That's honestly also a no, but long term, right? You can use Freezing Pulse. Use from 1 to 12. That is fine. Stormbrand is a maybe, right? Stormbrand is a maybe. Still need to test it. That's the only one that I haven't used reliably yet. So I think what's going to happen is this weekend I will remake a character, and I'll level it from X 1 to 5, doing the same pathing that I have here that you see in the background. And we will see how it goes. Probably mix Stormbrand with Herald of Lightning, and we'll see how that goes, right? Because since we're focusing crit, I want to use abilities that are, that can crit, right? So that's what I'm thinking right now. I think we run Stormbrand, Herald of Lightning, and then I used Eye of Winter, which is a yes. That did really well. It did really solid. I was very surprised. But we're not scaling Proj, and we're not scaling spell power, right? And so this still poses a problem, right? That problem is because we're only scaling crit, and from X1 to 5, the crit scales kind of slowly. You're not going to see Eye of Winter perform amazing until around Act 5 when we start to make the switch, right? Because by the round Act 5, we got about 35-40% crit. The build can more or less come online, and we can go from there. Alternatively, one thing that I did find that worked fairly well was in Act 4, right? As a intermediate switch, right? So that we would have an Acts 1 to 4, and then we would have a switch from 4 to 5 or 4 to 6, and then we would around 5 or 6 we would make a third switch to the very end game setup, which is the full cast on crit setup, which is a cast while channeling setup, right? So instead of crit, we would just cast on channel. It would proc every 4.4 at gym level 1, which is it's fairly smooth. I'm going to be honest, it's fairly smooth, but requires mana flask spamming, right? And so those are our options for Acts 1 to 5. I think what I'm going to personally do, because you can't get cast while channeling until Act 4, right? So here's what I'm proposing. I'm proposing 1 to 12 freezing pulse, right? Then we switch to Stormbrand. Use Stormbrand until Act 4, because everything is still super weak by Act 4, right? And then you would switch to either Eye of Winter or keep using Stormbrand if it's working for you. And then in Act 4, switch to a cast while channeling setup for your Ice Nova and your Cyclone. And then around Act 5 and 6, fully make the switch to cast on crit. Obviously, you're going to be running a Diamond Flask. If you're not doing it right. Always run a Diamond Flask and a Granite. And that's my... Now, this obviously, I still need to... I'm going to retest this by re-leveling another character. And we're gonna see how it goes. Alternatively, we can not go this route, and we can go the long route, which takes up some extra skill points, but it does give us, an extra 42% spell damage. So instead of 20, we would have 62%, right? That would be a pretty large boost in damage. So I'm thinking. And we can always regret these later, right? And then move it here, and then put our extra points elsewhere, right? And then we will be taking this jewel socket, and then we will be taking this jewel socket and this jewel socket over here once we path all the way down into Inquisitor. So I think I'm probably gonna level this way, right? Just especially to help out the early game. I think it would help out a lot. Now mana, I mean, you have to mana flask spam early on. There's in a League Star scenario, there's no way to get around this. Period. Now, as far as pathing early, right? We'll come up here. Get this power node so we can start generating powder charges. I wait on this, right? I come all the way through here, all the way down, all the way up through here, and I go for Mind Drinker first. This creates a huge damage problem. Huge. Right? Because we're not picking up anything damage-wise here. Nothing. Except for this. 20% damage. Other than that, we're not picking anything else up. And then we hit Mind Drinker. This single node solves all of our mana issues minus a single target. So, Mind Drinker solves mapping mana problems, right? But for single target, we still have to spam. Our solution to that is a mana on hit claw / mod. because I'm pretty sure you can run the like mana gained on hit mod, and which case we also will be taking this right here and this as well to help with our single target leech, right? Now, Clever Thief may not be worth it. I'm still kind of testing it out. Because our damage is not super high, we're not hitting for very hard on Cyclone, the leech is going to be very low. But our our mana gain for each hit plus our leech, I've noticed has helped considerably, though we still have to mana flash spam on the regular. It's just not as egregious as it used to be when we didn't have the nodes. So far that's my solution. Also, late game solution is mana reductions, right? Of course, mana reductions, huge. Making Cyclone free. Non-channeling minus, minus mana mod. There's also the replica Conqueror's gem, which gives us -9 mana cost. There's a bunch of different options we can take to really give ourselves the best opportunity to save mana for single target fighting, right? Another thing that is going to be part of the leveling, but not part of the end game, at least right now, is Hydrosphere. This has helped our single target damage considerably. You throw it down, you put down a frost bomb, you go to work, right? It pulses damage, you're doing damage. Everything, all the resistances are lower. It really is just seamless in the leveling experience. We will be running a 4-link, right? So I think that's very important. You'll get that in Act 4, and it will be invaluable to you as you level, guaranteed. It's a lot. Gearing and armor, or excuse me, our gearing hurdles will be solved as I level another 2 or 3 builds to really refine where we're going with the build. So I can't really offer a solution to that right now, but as you saw from the beginning of the video, I mean, it feels good, it looks good. The single target needs a little bit of work, but that comes honestly with scaling from our Ascendancy. In which case, speaking of our Ascendancy, very important to talk about. By the way, we're doing about 500,000 damage at level 75. With honestly, I just have some really awful gear set up. We do have the jewel foils, in which these are honestly very cheap. You will be able to buy these in a League Start situation, which is why I went ahead and added them into the POB. And the jewel is pretty ass. Also, another thing, accuracy is going to be an issue. But it is an issue that is completely solvable. Pick up some accuracy on your rings, maybe on your weapons while you level, and pick up the depth perception node, and possibly the accuracy and attack speed. But we need to be careful with our attack speed and attack rate versus our cooldown reduction, right? Because it starts to get a little wonky there, which we'll go into in a later video. For the most part, it's not going to be an issue as you level. But as far as Pantheons go, we are going to go Profane. We're going to go for Forbidden Power as our very first Ascendancy, because we're trying extremely hard to stack crit. And this specific node is perfect for us. We get more area of effect. We get more damage per power charge. We get power charge generation. We get +1 to maximum power charge. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Vile Bastion will be our go-to option once we switch to low life, obviously. And until that point, which will be way later in the end game, like super end game, once you make some currency, um, you're definitely going to want to run Profane Bloom. But that will be the very last thing you take, because Profane Bloom is going to require you to curse enemies on the regular, and self-casting a curse is just not efficient. And so if you want to take Profane Bloom, you may figure out a way to do a Blasphemy Frostbite setup, which I don't think is a good idea because it takes up too much reservation. Or a Curse on Hit Ring, which is eventually what we will have, which is why I took Profane Bloom, which is why it's our last one that we take, right? Because getting a really good Curse on Hit Ring with good stats is going to be a fair bit expensive, right? So we're going to go Forbidden Power, we're going to go Void Beacon, and we're going to go Frigid Wake as our third Ascendancy in Act 10 before we kill Act 10 Kataba. So that's kind of the plan for the build. These are the hurdles that we're trying to overcome. I hope I explained it well enough for you guys. I think it's more than doable. And I think that I can build it in a way and portray that build how I want it to go to somebody that's not a super experienced player. Because this is honestly, right now as it stands, this is something for like an advanced player, right? This is not something that I would give somebody who's only got like 1,000 hours in the game or whatever, right? Because they're not really going to understand like what to do, what to look for, because this requires hard focusing on stats, right? It's very important. One of the good news is we don't have any issues with dex. We don't have any issues with strength. So our stat problems are gone. We don't have to worry about those, and that's another load off. But I think this build can work. I think a League Start cast on crit is viable if done correctly and efficiently. And that is what I want this project to be. I want to figure out a way to give the community a way to cast on crit League Start. Because what at the end of the day, what is the point of a League Start? The point of a League Start is to get to maps, get to farming currency, clear the Atlas, and I think that cast on crit can do that. I think that a League Start cast on crit is viable. Cost bridge malices are not that expensive. You can just as easily switch into low life once you make currency, right? If I can solve our single target issues, if I can find a way to start killing conquerors reliably on this setup, I think we can do this. And this number, this 500,000 damage number, that is on the extreme low end, way low end. I think with 5 EX investment, I can take this easily to 2 million damage. And at that point, once we solve our mana issues, that's it. We're heading to the crops, dude. It's easy. I don't really know what that means, heading to the crops. That's just what popped out of my mind. It's easy. We're going to be able to start farming tier 16 maps. Now, this is obviously how it stands right now. We are running 3 auras. Eventually, I plan on running a Prism's Guardian, so we can start running some defensive auras as well. And it's probably going to take, a little bit of a, we're going to have to take some extra crit on jewels. Maybe a small cluster jewel setup, like a crit medium, because we're probably gonna have to take some crit away for some mana reservation and whatnot. But there's a lot to unpack here. I don't want to get too far in the end game. I just want to focus this video on here's our build. This is my idea. This is what I want to solve, and that's what we have on the notepads. I hope you guys enjoyed this like small theory craft of my project and where I want to take it. If you guys did enjoy it, I know it's kind of a long, it's like a 30 fucking minute video. It's insane. If you guys enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps a lot. And that's it. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day and enjoy your weekend. And I will talk to you guys very soon. Be good. Take care.